Happy NDA drop day, everybody. I am you, and I'm really excited to be able to do some analysis for you on some new content now that we have new videos out, so that's super exciting. Today's video comes from Dog's stream. He was actually battling against Th3raT in draft, so some two high-profile Hearthstone players that I was able to catch and do for you guys to do a cast, and then doing some analysis afterwards, just for those who don't know what the pattern is here. A little bit simpler, though, because I didn't have quite as much time to prepare for this one, because I want to do with some new content, but got some for you anyway. But on that note, though, I do want help finding good content to do for these casts plus analysis. I have a submission page now up on my website where you can find clips that you put them there of like a game that you thought was interesting. You put your name, put the name of the person who made the clip initially, made the video initially, to pull that from. I really want to use that for some of this because I think that'll help in improving the quality of what it is that we're talking about. And you can even win a $5 Steam gift card for doing this. I'm hoping to give those out weekly for the top video submission of the week. I'm also planning to give $5 Steam gift cards for the best comments of the week too, because I think there's a lot of stuff that I can't cover necessarily in the videos because I mean there's a lot going on. But if you catch a play, you catch an interaction, you catch something going on that I didn't mention in the video you thought was really insightful and interesting, comment below and you have a chance to win that $5 gift card. I'll give some more details about how that works maybe in the future, but once per week at the very least I'll be giving out one for both the video submissions and for the best comments of the week. Thank you so much for checking this out. We'll get right into the game immediately. Okay, so this is Dog versus Th3raT. If you're not really familiar with the Hearthstone stream, these are two pretty big name players. Within that, this is a draft game. As you can see, they're both on 3-color decks from the composition of their heroes. We're going to get right into the game. I mean, obviously, draft decks are going to be less synergistic, 3-faction ones especially, and you're going to have a lot of turns like this on turn 1 where you can't do a whole lot against whatever it is your opponent is doing, because you just don't have any cards you can cast. Bristleback, though, is going to take a Viper Strike to the face, which is unfortunate. It does mean that he'll be dying over the course of a couple turns. Viper Strike, definitely not a great card. I definitely, having watched some of Viper in play, I understand more now why he isn't considered to be a particularly good card. A number of the beta testers have been saying that they weren't impressed with him, and he's definitely pretty slow and kind of clunky. We still have no cards in hand that we can play here from Dog's position, so we are going to pass there. One of the things that is, of course, unfortunate here is that we can't really see what the composition of our opponent's hand here, so I'll be focusing on Dog's perspective and then maybe try to make some inferences as what Th3raT might be thinking or doing based on just only of the actions that we can actually see. Now, of course, there's the question right now of what we're going to expect from our opponent right here for them to do. I think that we can expect that the Kana is going to be coming out into the mid lane. If you know what her signature card is, it allows you to spawn 2/1 little hound doggos for every damage unit in the lane. There's clearly a lot of those in that center lane already. So if she has that already, that'd be really, really cool. Ogre on our side, of the Dog side, you actually really want to put it in the first lane. And the reasoning why has often to do with being able to launch cross-lane effects. I don't know what his exact deck looks like, so it's hard for me to know exactly. But for instance, something like Ignite is a great card to be able to shoot off from the first lane into the second and third lane. And so that's a pretty handy thing. Now, so we're going to set that up right here. Kana does enter into the second lane as we predicted. It's pretty logical, and one of the things that he's just highlighting right now is that the Ignite actually does a really good job of countering the Hounds of War card. This is Prey of the Week is the name of the actual card. This is Kana's card that spawns all those 2/1s for every damaged unit. So that's why he's deploying the Ignite here. But there's a lot that you can do so with this Ogre Metra in lane 1. He's the only blue hero in the deck. But according to the statistics from the draft tournament that happened last weekend, this was the highest rated card. Now, one of the things to highlight right there is that the Bristleback is going to be dying on upkeep because of the Viper Strike that's there. It's a kind of an annoying feature of how that lane ended up working out. And he lost to attack from the Viper as well. Yeah, this PA looking right now like they're going to be trading with the opponent's Heath. Does have the opportunity to deploy the Tyler Estate Center into the center lane if that's what you're interested in, which is quite appealing, especially right here before your opponent has an opportunity to do anything with it. Now, there is some interest in, for instance, forcing them to activate the Aghanim Sanctum first. I don't know if there's any advantage of doing it afterwards, like before or after. It's probably about the same, really. I'll have to think about that one some more, about whether or not that there's any real difference there. But blocking your opponent from actually doing anything this turn is pretty appealing. Now, the Keith and the PA, they trade. Right now, the Legion Commander is going to be trading with the Lycan. Now, we do have the opportunity to, clear the deck here. This clears out some of the creeps to slow down the aggression, which is an interesting option here, because you want to keep your tower alive. Like, even though it's still 40 health, this does slow things down reasonably. That Viper Strike, though, is doing a lot of work over the course of these early turns. Tons of gold, buy up a bunch of interesting items is possible to do. You definitely want to start off by buying some stuff from the center shop to see what else you get. This, bought up a ton of tasty goodies here. Now, it's hard, it's really unfortunate that you can't do anything like saving either of your red heroes, given the fact that you're getting these, that they're going to be dying on the upkeep. It's really annoying that that's how things ended up working out. So this is, I think, a best case scenario for Viper Strike. You really don't tend to see it do this much work, but definitely in this game you can see that it really, really frustrated Dog's plays. The decisions of where these heroes are going to go from this position, I think, is one of the topics that we talk about here, but where we're getting, like, Dog is really thinking very hard about where different units are going to be deployed here, and trying to make a decision based on that. Ends up going into the third lane. I'm not really crazy about this, given the fact that you're kind of winning it. I guess you're not really need it already. You think there's a pretty good chance that where we're going to have our unit die there, our Legion Commander die there, unless we draw something really spectacular, which we don't. Now, one of the advantages, too, of having the Ogre as our sole blue hero is that has the capacity to feed itself with extra copies of things. Now, that does mean that you have, if you have few blue cards and he stays alive for a while, you continue to have blue cards for you to feed it to him and cast with him. But on the flip side, that also means that if you have a bunch of blue cards, you have more and more in it, you might not be able to actually take advantage of it. So he's actually, in some respects, a mixed bag as this kind of a position in a deck, but definitely having him in that first lane is really useful to have. Going to deploy that Dimensional Portal, which is quite strong here. We get the multicast off, very nice. So that'll be a good way. And this is such a good thing, too, for as a solo hero in a lane, because it helps you to push things down. That's one of the issues with a blue hero sometimes, is you can clear a lane, you can secure stuff with a lot of the removal and such that you have access to, but, or setting up these cross-lane effects, but you actually have to have something to pressure lanes sometimes, too. So having that Dimensional Portal is a very, very good tool for that, in combination with that Ogre Magi. Second lane here, the opponent does have the opportunity to deploy the Prey on the Weak, which is going to really just feed some gold and trade a little bit. This doesn't accomplish a whole ton, especially if there isn't a hero in this lane to really do anything about all of this, so that's not exactly an exciting play. Legion Commander dies, as we expected. Sister of the Veil comes down. Sets up a kill on the creep, which is actually fine. You could set up a hit on the tower, but you'd rather just clear out the creeps in order to set up more damage. Now, it is possible, if you're feeling feisty, to activate the Arctic Burn in order to enhance the damage even further if you really wanted to, but I don't think that that's necessary for this moment. You're not trying to play for aggression. I think that Arctic Burn is a surprisingly difficult ability to use properly. There are a lot of instances where it really doesn't do a whole ton. Like, the composition of it, the deck, the composition of the lane has to be fairly particular. After watching it a good deal more, I'm not a big fan of the Winter Wyvern. Going into the shopping phase right now, we have the opportunity to buy a few different things. Now, that Dematching Mall is quite interesting, given the fact that we do have an improvement in that center lane. It's going to be a little bit difficult to be able to deploy that properly, given the fact that we have a lot of crap in that lane, and we also know that there's creeps coming into that lane too. I'm personally not a fan of this purchase. I kind of feel as if the Town Portal Scroll will actually be a better application right now. He does buy the Dematching Mall, which I can understand it, because if you can set up play to kill that improvement, that's pretty interesting. But I feel that there's a lot of ways that doesn't work out. It's just like, look at how crowded the lane is. I mean, I don't think that the Ignite is going to clear out everything beforehand, especially given the fact that we have another hero going into the lane as well. So it's just going to be really hard to get the Magic Maul off, and getting an extra 2 attack on PA isn't exactly like, you know, hooray. So we have a few options from this position. We could deploy another Ignite in order to help power down that center lane. It's also possible to deploy another dimensional portal. I think that I'll have to think about this one a little bit more, but there's part of me that I don't see the Ignite doing a ton right now in that center lane. So as a result, I'm pretty inclined to say letting another portal off is like, it uses your power better if that's how things work out, if that becomes a factor down the line. It's just like whenever you have the chance to use your power effectively, use more mana rather, that's an attractive feature of what, if that's something that you can do in your hand. In this situation, it's not like the Dimensional Portal is great. It does play into a little bit of something like a sweeper, like if your opponent does have an Annihilation or a Thunderstorm or something of this nature. It does end up opting for the Ignite, though I think that's a reasonable play. Still, this is obviously the only other option that's particularly interesting. You don't really want to use a Tower Barrage on the Zeus. Now, that does set up a heal right now to block the Thunder God's Wrath, which will obviously be coming next turn, or is likely to come next turn. So we see that here. We get the activations of the double Ignite in this situation. And look, what did the second Ignite really accomplish here? I kind of just like playing out the spells and seeing if we can get more copies of the Dimensional Portal and pressure that first lane also, because we're winning that lane, but we're also not pushing the tower particularly fast. I think that I still prefer the Dimensional Portal in that lane. We do get off this de-magicking Maul, though, which is quite appealing. The opponent did deploy a second improvement into the lane, though, which does slow things down. Now, this setup, though, technically, of like what the Rat has done is actually particularly, potent, and this Dimensional Maul is doing a really good job of countering, because what they're planning to do, I believe, is maybe they have some other small card they play from this junction, but really what they're aiming to do is activate the Sanctum, have 7 mana, and then play a copy of Thunder God's Wrath, which is always quite appealing. Maybe I think that's what they're trying to do. It doesn't end up activating the Aghanim Sanctum. I think that you want to activate the Sanctum there before the Maul comes down, because the Maul, if it hits the Sanctum, that's definitely worse. That was definitely wrong on the Rat side. I don't see that there was any point in playing the Cloak first, especially like what's going to happen with that the Kana there. You'd rather have, because if the Magic Maul happens to hit the Sanctum, you would rather have that 7 mana. So that was definitely a mistake. Anyway, we have the opportunity to play a coup de grace in this position to kill one of the heroes if we really want to. It does end up going for it. I kind of like the idea of forcing more of these stupid creeps to go into that mid lane, because if we have gone so far as to commit those 2 Ignites into that center lane, I feel as if it's probably better to just keep the Kana there. She just keeps on feeding them in the mid lane to the Ignite. The center, the cleric right now, the reasoning what this represents is that we're going to be setting up for a Thunder God's Wrath, because this is going to deal the 4 damage, etc. So that's part of the reasoning there. Finally, kills that sensor, slows down the tower more. There's some questions about what to do here. Could coup de grace the Keith, which is interesting. I don't really think that it's necessary here. Oh, Reptile Signet Ring. Okay, that comes down. I mean, yeah, there's a pretty good chance that this was going to happen. There was an item still in hand. Now, it's worth noting that the Arctic Burn ability, if you activate that, there is a chance that it could redirect, well, to go, if you land it in the rightmost position, that it could redirect, hit the Keith there with the 10 damage, which will actually lead to lethal in conjugation with the creep attack, but that's only a 25% chance of that happening. This just emphasizes this thing that I'm saying, though, about Arctic Burn and Winter Wyvern in general being a hard card to use well. Now, it also does open you up to counterplay from your opponent if they do have any creeps. So, for instance, your opponent is on a red deck and has the opportunity to do something like an Ogre Conscript that's directly in front of that. So that's a danger. And we see that happens on the left lane. This is for the purposes of killing that Assassin's, the Sister of the Veil, rather. But it would have happened in that rightmost position had you moved that Winter Wyvern. So I kind of like this, just kind of play it simply. Maybe you even do it now, like, why not just get that extra damage in some positions? You don't really want a coup de grace. The hand is really good. Just hopefully buy some crappy items up, maybe, in order to feed to the coup de grace. I personally don't like this use of initiative if we're going to activate it to redirect the Sister of the Veil. Here, like, yeah, you deal an extra 4 damage on this Viper, but, like, what does that really accomplish? This is especially bad since we're against the Zeus, and that means that we're not able to kill him or interrupt him before we can make some play. We even see that we have enough magic in hand that we could have been able to preempt that use of a Thunder God's Wrath in the first lane, if that's what he actually has in hand, which is heavily representing given what he did in that second lane. I do like buying multiple items, though, because it does mean that our coup de grace is more likely to discard something that isn't quite as worthwhile. The question is what we're going to do with these red heroes, whether we could put them one in the left, one in the mid, or both left. There's part of me that wants to put the Legion Commander on the left lane. Maybe it's a little easier to set up a kill on that. The Zeus, given the fact that our Bristleback there lost some attack from battling with the Viper earlier. I guess that neither one of them can really kill it clean out, but definitely would have liked to do enough magic from this spot. We don't have that luxury. We're probably just going to eat that Thunder God's Wrath here anyway, given that play sequencing. It could have been worse, though. It could have been worse. We do get some extra ping damage in there. We do have a bunch of cards still that we can play. The Dimensional Portal is always quite interesting. Our red cards are less interesting at this position, but maybe we can do something with them soon. But we are winning this lane, I believe, overall. The Dimensional Portal, though, still doing a lot of work, getting a multicast on it. Now, one thing that is important to note is that we are in a state now in the beta that we can't see our opponent's deck list when we're playing these games. It used to be the case that we could, now we can't. That means that we don't know if he's playing something like Annihilation or Thunderstorm or anything like that. And that actually makes a pretty big difference in a situation like this. Like, if you get hit by something like At Any Cost or Annihilation, like, that's a big deal. Sucker Punch, that actually ends up working really well. That's always a card that I'm not quite sure what to think about yet. I'm interested to see more of it and get a better evaluation of it. It's fine, for sure, but it's definitely not exceptional. Have the opportunity to deploy out some more material here. Get a kill on that Lycan, very nice. Can't really do a ton in this lane. I kind of like just abandoning it. It's unfortunate the coup de grace can't really do very much because there's so much good stuff in the hand still. This is the problematic part with coup de grace, especially if you're not really maximizing the card advantage that you might not have access to. So that's problematic. I kind of still like getting that gold mine out of the way here because there's nothing else that really matters. Yeah, actually just pass here for initiative. You want to keep initiative in this position. You're probably taking that leftmost lane. You're in a very good position to take the middle lane. Just play for initiative because nothing can really go that wrong. Your opponent still does have the potential to set up a kill or some big move with the Thunder God's Wrath in the first lane, but that's only so much can go wrong in there. Buying up that potion that draws cards is very appealing. So we'll probably expect everything to go left lane, I imagine, in order to slow things down there. It's actually hard. I could see kind of going either in the mid or to the left. I don't know which one is easier to defend. They both seem really hard. So it decides to go for the left lane. Decides that that's the one that'll be easier to defend. I mean, yeah, I guess just with more material going in there, you have a higher chance of just high rolling things. Now, the current positions, you can't actually win the game here, but playing something like enough magic, you block your opponent from being able to do anything really meaningful, which will make it really hard. Now, you still do have the problem of maybe running into a sweeper in this first lane over the course of the next couple of turns, but that's not the end of the world, because you've just been going so well. You can still probably set up and kill if they're forced to kill all their own stuff too. But I like the idea of doing the enough magic, just put your opponent under even more pressure, take out some of their riffraff there. In the center lane, we can deploy just the Smeevil to get a little bit more pressure here. We lose one of our ignites to the Obliterating Orb. Not the end of the world. It would have been nice to find a way to do some lethal damage without having to keep our Bristleback in the lane, unfortunately, because he has to be here in order to actually deal the damage. Technically, I'm not crazy about that ordering there. It would have been better to do the Potion of Knowledge first before deploying the Broadsword, given the fact that it would have been possible to maybe draw into a creep or something like this that did the damage that you need, and then maybe you still deploy the Broadsword anyway, but you have at least the option first. Always better to draw first and get the options. Obviously, nothing to be done here. This is a good move, though, from the opponent. Playing out Intimidation does mean that we move our hero to another random lane, which gives you a potential to find a way to survive. But this ultimately really feels like just buying time, pushing off the inevitable. The tower rather does go down into the right lane, moving into the shopping phase. Maybe buy a teleportal scroll, doesn't really matter. We are very close to victory one way or another. Since we have initiative going into that first lane, we can probably we can't kill both of the blue heroes, unfortunately, so they will have access to at least one blue hero going into that lane. And actually, given that reality, there's part of me that's worried about playing out multiple heroes into this lane, since really the only way that you lose is something like Annihilation. I don't know if we should be playing out them both here. I'll revisit this moment in an analysis, though. This position, there's a lot that you can do. I think that this whole, this is what happens when you have a hand that's full of just a bunch of nonsense. It's very hard to choose what to do. So Dimensional Portal, for instance, is pretty appealing because it lays things out even further. You only have one blue hero in the lane. He dies to something like Thunder God's Wrath, and if your opponent does use Thunder God's Wrath, which is likely their best card, you're still going to win. This is part of the reason, though, that I wasn't crazy about deploying multiple black heroes into this lane. I just didn't feel like it would do very much under most situations, and it just sets them up to die. So I would have preferred one of them into the right lane so that, for instance, you could set up a kill on the hero there, maybe. But anyway, that's it for the casting of the game. Let's move on to some analysis. So I'm not going to do a ton of analysis on this video because it's already pretty long, and I brought a lot of that up in the course of the game itself. But there's some points I want to draw about the mid-game here that I thought there was some weird decision-making. And what it really relates to is the idea of choosing a line, choosing an approach to the game and kind of sticking with it, and making sure all of your decisions work together, and you're not kind of doing a half-assed job of implementing two plans simultaneously. So you might remember I brought up this moment when we were back here, that you have the option to buy the Demagicking Maul from the secret shop. That is appealing because it allows you to kill the Aghanim Sanctum in the center lane, but that then commits you to place the PA into the center lane as well, which might not want to do, and especially when you have the coup de grace in hand, where you could deploy the PA into the left lane. She's lined up to kill this Zeus for free, which is really attractive, and you can just you force them to do something, and if they do something, then you can use the coup de grace on it, and so that puts them under a lot of pressure, and you don't put her into the middle lane, and instead you just kind of accept the fact that Kana is going to be there. But that's also not that concerning because you have the Ignite that's in the center lane as well. Like, if you look at the composition, we'll have some chances to glance into it, of what the composition of that center lane looks like. It's going to kind of be torn up by these Ignites, especially given the fact that you have another one that you can deploy next turn. So that's something that I'm interested in. We also have this decision right here from Dog of whether or not to deploy the Dimensional Portal or to deploy the Ignite at this juncture. And I feel as if the second Ignite into that center lane is a little bit redundant, especially when you have the option of saying, okay, there's already one Ignite there, that's going to slow things down. So had the PA here, you would have been able to then coup de grace in this instance, because these Zeus can gain some life, block him for a little while. But yeah, so we get to this juncture right here. If we don't deploy that, we just deploy a Dimensional Portal, then we're pushing the left lane, keeping the center lane kind of static, freezing that line as a result of the 189, and then we hopefully set up a second one in the next turn, maybe doing something like Ignite plus Dimensional Portal, again, if we happen to recast it from the last turn. So he does end up going for the Ignite instead, though, but this kind of is what I'm talking about, of going in different ways and different pushes. Now, this, if you really wanted to commit to saying, I'm keeping the Kana alive, I'm forcing the Kana to stay in this lane and forcing all of their creeps to move into that center lane, that's actually kind of good, because you have two Ignites in the lane, their creeps are going to come in there, they're going to be just taking damage every time that they're deploying. But as we see when we get to the right lane right now, we actually use the Phantom Assassin and with the coup de grace to kill the Kana. So really what I'm trying to highlight here is that there seem to be like a reading of the different situations of just saying, I am going to use cards that are in my hand that seem kind of good in the situation, rather than constructing an overall plan of how do I see these lanes looking over the course of the next couple of turns. You know, like, what am I really weak to? What am I really like afraid of? And structuring the game around that. Like, are you really that scared about Aghanim Sanctum that you're committing the PA to a lane that she doesn't really want to be in, to maybe for the chances of taking that down? Like, it seems like a bit of a bank shot, and especially when she didn't have a very high chance of being able to pull it off exactly. Like, I don't know. I personally am not excited about that. But yeah, that is all I wanted to say about this juncture in the game, because it felt as if there wasn't a coherent plan made up, and it wasn't even like there was so much responding to what your opponent was doing exactly. It was all like there was anything unexpected precisely that happened, except for maybe the Salamania's favor. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about this. So the last thing I want to talk about here is decision making in the ultra late game when you have a lot of options that are available to you. You have a complex board state like this. And what I'll actually say is that one of the secrets is to eliminate options from your mind. This is a list right now of all of the cards that we have available to us in this moment. But you can pretty quickly see that there's some of them that really don't matter. Like, you know, smash the defenses. There's no targets for that. Combat training seems really a low impact right here. Ironfall, Golden Mine, totally nonsense given this. So let's just like eliminate all these. We have this refined list right now of what are the cards that we have that actually matter here. Second, we want to identify what are the key objectives that matter the most in this position. And what I would identify is that your opponent has blue heroes, and it would be really nice to knock them out of the lane before they have a chance to cast any blue spells. You actually look through our options, though, we can't do that. And as a result, we kind of have to accept the fact that if our opponent has some super high impact board sweeper in blue, we're just going to have to taste it. We're going to have to eat it. We're going to lose to that. So without that, like, let's just like, we can't really think about it because we're going to lose to it anyway, or at least this lane is going to be a disaster anyway, and the game goes badly. So, and what are the other situations? And what I can identify very quickly is that, like, our board is a little bit vulnerable to the Thunder God's Wrath, which would kill our blue hero. So maybe we want to just deploy some more threats to maximize the chance that we kill our opponent's tower to end the game. And as a result, I think that the Dimensional Portal is the most logical play given all of this. So we took this big cluster of information that looks really overwhelming. We then simplified it down to what are our actual choices that do stuff in the situation, and then say, how does this help us achieve our various objectives? Our primary objective of saying, let's shut off all the blue spells, doesn't work, so let's go to a secondary one, which is like, okay, let's just maximize tower damage then, assuming our opponent doesn't have a high impact sweeper. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about this for today. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a lot of fun to do this. As always, be sure to submit your comments and your suggested videos for me to work on. I would really appreciate that. But that'll be everything from me today. A little bit shorter of the analysis. Take care, everybody.